Have you ever felt a single moment shatter your entire reality? Not with a scream, but with a silence so deafening it echoes in your bones. That's what happened to me last Christmas Eve. My own son, the boy I raised, the man I trusted with my life's work, looked me in the eye, put his hands on me, and pushed. I crashed to the floor at his feet, a 68-year-old man, humiliated in front of my grandchildren, and as I lay there on the cold tile, hearing the words "get out," I made a silent promise. He thought he was taking my seat at the head of the table. By sunrise, I would take everything. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved, if you've ever craved a justice so precise it feels like karma itself, you need to hear this story. This isn't about petty revenge. This is about the collapse of a family and the brutal, beautiful consequences of disrespect. Strap in. This one's a long, painful, and ultimately satisfying ride. Smash that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments. What would you have done? The afternoon of December 24th, Chicago was a postcard. Snow dusted the brownstones, and golden light spilled from every window. My heart felt just as warm. In my hands were gifts for my grandchildren, Jacob and Isabel. A chemistry set for my brilliant 15-year-old grandson, a signed first edition for my bookworm of a granddaughter. And under my arm, a bottle of 1997 Bordeaux I'd been saving for a decade. This was the occasion. The air at David's house was thick with the smell of rosemary and roast lamb. Grandpa Mikhail, the sound of their voices, the weight of Jacob's taller-than-me hug, the way 12-year-old Isabel still buried her face in my shoulder. For a moment, everything was perfect. It was the last moment of genuine warmth I would feel. My daughter, La Teresa, greeted me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. It never did. Her gaze was always measuring, calculating the social value of my every word. Then David appeared from the kitchen. "Hey Dad, just leave your coat there." His voice was a monotone, a mechanical sound. My paternal radar, honed over 42 years, began to ping. Something was off. The dining table was a spectacle. 8 place settings. But we were only 6. David, Teresa, the kids, and me. "Is someone else coming?" I asked. Teresa's painted lips stretched. "Yes, my father will be here in a moment." Anthony Moore. A name that carried weight in Chicago business circles. My friendly rival for 30 years, a man of old money and colder calculations. When he arrived, my son transformed. I watched, a ghost in my own family's home, as David became a stranger. He took Anthony's coat with a reverence I'd never seen. "Mr. Moore, what a pleasure. Come in, come in." I swallowed the bitter taste in my mouth. "It's Christmas," I told myself. "Family." We moved to the table. Instinctively, I moved to my chair. The one at the head, next to David. The chair I'd occupied since my wife, Rose, passed away and these dinners moved here. It was more than furniture. It was my place in the family architecture. But as Anthony approached, David caught my eye. And what I saw in my son's face, it stole the air from my lungs. His expression was devoid of any love, any history. It was pure, cold calculus. "Dad," he said, the word a weapon. "I need you to get up from there." Confusion clouded my mind. "What? Why? That seat is for Mr. Moore. He's the guest of honor." I felt the heat of a slap across my face, but no hand had touched me. "David, son, I've always sat here. This is my place." The air curdled. Teresa studied her napkin. The children froze, their eyes wide. Anthony stood there, an awkward statue, but in his eyes, a flicker, not of embarrassment, of satisfaction. "Dad, don't make this difficult. Move." "I don't understand, David. What is going on here?" That's when he crossed the room. He placed his hands on my shoulders. For a wild second, I thought he was going to hug me, to whisper an apology. Then he pushed. I'm 68. My balance isn't what it was. The force was brutal, deliberate. My hip hit the edge of the table before I crashed down onto the hard tile floor. The impact shuddered through my bones. A sharp, sickening pain shot through my side. The room plunged into a silence so absolute I could hear the frantic beat of my own heart. Then, the children's screams. "Grandpa!" Teresa's hands flew to her mouth. Anthony looked down at me, and that flicker in his eyes ignited into a full, blazing flame of triumph. From the floor, looking up at the man I'd raised from infancy, I heard the words that severed our bond forever. "This seat belongs to my father-in-law," David said, his voice clean and clear. "Get out." On that cold tile, something didn't just break. It shattered. The image of my son, the unconditional love, The decades of sacrifice, the 18-hour days building Miller Construction from a truck and a dream into an empire, all to give him this life. It all crumbled to dust, leaving behind a void, filled not with tears, but with a terrifying crystalline calm. The kids helped me up. Isabel's tears fell on my cheek. "Are you okay, Grandpa?" "I'm fine, sweetie," I lied, my voice strangely steady, but inside, the storm was organizing. A hurricane of cold, hard purpose. I took the side chair, the chair for a spare guest. I sat, and I watched. I watched David laugh with Anthony. I watched Teresa hang on Anthony's every word. I watched my grandchildren's confused, heartbroken faces as they looked from their father to me. And with every bite of food that tasted like ash, with every laugh that felt like a shiv in my ribs, my plan solidified. I excused myself to the bathroom, locked the door. The man in the mirror had red-rimmed eyes, not from crying, but from the furnace of anger burning within. I took out my phone, my weapon of choice. First call, Edward Roberts, my lawyer for 25 years. "Michael, it's Christmas Eve. What's the emergency?" "Edward, first thing tomorrow. Revoke every power of attorney David has. Cancel every financial guarantee I've co-signed. The house, the cars, the credit cards, everything." "Michael, are you sure? This will—" "I know exactly what it means. My son just showed me who he is. Now I'll show him who I am." Second call, Linda Vance, my CFO. "Is there a legal problem, Mr. Miller?" "No, Linda, I'm just taking back control of what's mine. Freeze every joint account. Suspend his salary and benefits. Effective immediately." Third call, Robert Pfizer, my most loyal employee, a man I pulled from the trenches. "Are you firing him, boss? He is no longer CEO. You are. Go to the office early. Pack every personal item in his office into a box, and place a note on his empty desk. Write this exactly: 'This office is not for you.'" I returned to the dinner. The conversation had moved on, as if the humiliated patriarch on the floor had never existed. Double quotes. "A merger between our companies could be very beneficial," Anthony was saying. "A merger? My life's work, handed to my rival. By my own son, a merger?" I asked, my voice a quiet blade. David didn't even look at me. "Oh yeah, Dad. Mr. Moore and I have been discussing possibilities for my company. Well, technically, I'm the CEO," he added, with a smirk that made my fist clench under the table. "Technically, oh my boy. You have no idea what's technical and what's real." I left soon after. David didn't walk me to the door. Jacob did. "Are you upset about what happened, Grandpa?" "I'm not upset, Jacob. I'm disappointed. But sometimes disappointments teach us the most important truths." The cold night air was a baptism. In my car, I made one final call to my estate lawyer. My will would be changed by morning. I spent Christmas Eve not in sleep, but in strategy. My study became a war room. Documents spread like a battlefield map. I discovered David's secret financial betrayals, diverted funds, hidden commissions, a life propped up entirely by my name and my credit. At 3 a.m., I called Robert again. What if he arrives while I'm doing it? Even better, I said, a ghost of a smile on my lips. I want him to see how it feels when someone takes his place. By 7 a.m., I was on the phone with Chase Bank, canceling every last guarantee. The final domino. At 8 a.m., Edward arrived with the papers. As I signed my name with a hand that did not shake, he warned me, "Michael, once you sign this, there's no going back." I looked at him. "Edward, a few hours ago, my son pushed me to the floor to give my seat to another man. Do you think there's any going back?" David woke on Christmas morning with a pit in his stomach. He ignored the first few calls. Telemarketers, he thought. He had no idea that in bank servers across the city, digital guillotines had already dropped. At 10:15 a.m., the deluge began. "Mr. Miller, the guarantee on your mortgage has been canceled. The full $600,000 is due immediately. Your corporate line of credit is suspended. Your business credit card is blocked. We are initiating asset seizure proceedings." 47 calls in 15 minutes. His financial life evaporated in real time, as he stood in his kitchen, paralyzed in silk pajamas. He raced to the office, his BMW the last symbol of his old life carrying him toward his ruin. He stormed into his corner office and found Robert sitting behind his desk. "Robert, what are you doing in my office?" "Good morning, David. This isn't your office anymore." On the pristine desk was my note, in my own handwriting. "This office is not for you." The same words he'd used. Sent back to him like a poisoned arrow. Robert handed him a letter. My final word. David, the consequences of our actions sometimes arrive when we least expect them. Last night you showed me my place in your life no longer exists. Today, I am showing you your place in my company doesn't either. You have until noon to vacate any property in my name. Do not contact me. This decision is final. Michael Miller. He stumbled out, just in time to see a tow truck hook his BMW. He took the subway home, a humiliation he hadn't known in years, to find Teresa sobbing with an eviction notice. They had 24 hours to leave. In a panic, David called his last hope, Anthony Moore, the man he'd tried to impress. Anthony, my father's lost his mind. I need your help. The voice that came back was colder than the Chicago winter. Asterisk, a meaningless argument. David, I witnessed a 42-year-old man publicly humiliate the father who gave him everything. You don't build respect by disrespecting others. Asterisk, we're family. Exactly. And I cannot have my grandchildren learn that your behavior is acceptable. Teresa and the children will always have my support. But you have shown you cannot be trusted. In fact, I will be contacting Michael to offer my personal apology. And to discuss a business partnership. The final blow. His great ally had not only abandoned him but had joined forces with the enemy. His own father-in-law saw more value in the man David had betrayed. Then came the judgment from his children. Dad, why did you push Grandpa? Isabel cried. He looked so sad. Jacob, with the brutal clarity of a teenager, said, you were mean to him, and now he's being mean to you. It's like at school. If you hit someone, you get punished. Teresa handed him separation papers. I can't be with someone who is capable of such cruelty. She and the children left for her parents' house. That night, David sat alone in a $60 a night motel room near Union Station. A lawyer called to inform him that any attempt to contact me would be met with a restraining order. In 24 hours, he lost his job, his home, his car, his wife, his children, his father-in-law's respect, and his father. All that remained was $300 cash and the echo of his own words, get out. What followed was a year of painful, grinding humility. David, the former CEO, became David the night shift janitor. He cleaned the very offices he once owned. He lived in a shared apartment, his hands growing calloused, his spirit worn thin. He saw his children only through strained phone calls, where he learned pieces of my new life. That Anthony and I had indeed formed a powerful partnership, that we laughed together, that we were happier. One day, hiding in Lincoln Park, he saw us, Anthony and me, spread out with blueprints, energized. He overheard Anthony ask, do you ever feel tempted to reconcile? My answer carried on the wind. Anthony, real change requires real consequences. If I forgive him easily, what does he learn? Maybe one day he'll show he's truly learned. But that day hasn't come yet. Those words broke him anew, not with anger, but with understanding. This wasn't vengeance. It was a brutal form of education. He realized the question wasn't when I would forgive him, but when he would become someone worthy of forgiveness. The arrogant man who pushed his father died on that floor. In his place, slowly, a different man was built. One who earned his $1,200 a month. Who found dignity in honest sweat. Who learned to listen to his children. A year to the day after his fall, David sat in his small, clean apartment on Christmas Eve. He didn't call. He wrote a letter, not asking for forgiveness, but expressing gratitude. Dear Michael, he wrote. I know I have no right to address you. I am not writing for reconciliation. I am writing so you know your son is finally learning to be a man. For 42 years, I believed I deserved everything because I was your son. Now I know I deserve nothing from privilege. Respect is earned through actions, not last names. There is no excuse for what I did. It was a cowardly, cruel choice, and it deserved every consequence. If we never speak again, know I became a better person because of them, not in spite of them. Thank you for being the father strong enough to let me fall. With respect, David. He sent it, not expecting a reply. 3 weeks later, a single sheet arrived in my handwriting. David, I received your letter. I am glad to know you are well and growing. That growth is what I hoped for. I am not ready to resume a relationship, and perhaps I never will be. But I want you to know I am proud of the man you are choosing to become. Stay on that path. Michael, it wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reunion. It was acknowledgement. It was, for the first time in his life, his father's respect. So, where's the revenge? The screaming, the smashing, the dramatic confrontation. It's all there. But the truest revenge wasn't taking his money or his job. It was forcing him to look in the mirror and see the hollow man he'd become. It was allowing him the space to build a real man in its place. The ultimate payback was not destroying him. It was making his survival contingent on becoming someone I could finally, truly, be proud of. The vengeance was in the lesson itself. This story cuts deep because it's not about monsters. It's about good people making terrible choices and facing the irreversible cost. Was Michael right? Could you ever cut off your own child? Could you ever forgive a betrayal that public? Let's talk about it. Drop your verdict in the comments below. If this story of cold, calculated justice gave you that cathartic rush, do the channel a huge favor. Hit that like button. Subscribe for more tales of epic payback and psychological drama. And share this with someone who needs to see that actions have consequences. For another story about a betrayal that was repaid 100-fold, check out the video on screen now. Thanks for watching.